Hey, welcome to Embrace the Power with me and Mike G. Here on here today, we got Esther. We're going to talk about dating and why it's so hard in the 21st century. I'm in Fort Lauderdale on off location. Mike's in Tampa as usual. And then we have Esther down in Athens, Greece. Oh my God, I love Athens. I love the sea, everything. The Med is awesome. Esther, how are you doing?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me. And love from Greece to you guys.
Hey, Mike, what's going on with you, man, up there in Tampa, man?
Doing it up, man. It's a nice day out. We have Greece, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale. We're all over. International show. I love it. Welcome, Esther. Welcome to Embrace the Power.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very nice guys. To be here.
So, guys, all I want you to do is just subscribe to the show, and then we're going to get after it. So Esther is a coach, and she kind of helps people influence her on dating, and she puts out some great content on TikTok, great content on Facebook, great content on Instagram. And so, Esther, let me ask you a question. What made you decide to start putting content out about dating?
Well, first of all, I studied psychology. So since I was actually very young, I've always been very interested in human behavior, in how people are and why people do things they do. So when I studied psychology, I realized that this is what I want to do. I want to help people because I think it's the greatest job ever. If you can help people, you also help yourself. My clients are literally my inspiration. And also, now that I'm more mature age-wise, I've also my personal experience. So I really can relate to a lot that I talk to about with young people, and I can help them more and more. So it's the best job ever. I'm super grateful. All my clients are all over the world, so it's super international what I'm doing. And it all started, as I told you, with my studies in psychology.
Wow.
And now I actually also wrote a book just now as a guide because I
When's it come out?
Well, it will come out in a week. So I will let you know. So you can let your followers know as well. So I'm super excited because why I wrote this book, because I saw that it's really necessary for people nowadays to put everything clear in their minds. It's such a confusing time we live in. We'll talk about that, I'm sure. So yeah, the book literally came from everything I wanted to put out there. This is literally why I started content creation, because I have so much to say, for men and for women. I'm not on either side. I'm for everybody. I want everybody to be better, after listening to my videos.
Oh, all right. So let me ask you a question then. So why is it so hard dating in the 21st century? Why?
Well, obviously, it's so hard because if you go back a little bit in history, not so far, like 50 to 60 years ago, things were completely different than now. We have changed like the history of humankind forever. From the moment women left the house, from the moment that women changed their identity because they entered the workforce. This is when everything started to change because we wanted to work to be financially independent from men, right? Because we were suffering just being at home. We didn't want that anymore. But we didn't understand what consequences that would have. And now that several generations have passed, now the result is that dating has become a mess. Not so much because women wanted to work, but because with women starting to work, we literally became an opponent to men. We literally started to compete with men. And while entering the men's world, we started to adapt the lifestyle of men. So nowadays, women literally live like men. We're so tuned into our masculine energy. And now the frustration is happening. This is the result of the generations before us. My mom started to work, and she was one of the first women ever in school who started to work. No other mom was working. By the time that I ended high school, most moms were working. It was a normality. But also the divorce rate started to increase because women started to have different kinds of demands. Before, we wanted a provider husband, right? A guy who would bring home money so he could take care of the family and that he could protect us. But now that women started to work and become financially independent, and we smelled the power that money brings, and we started to feel better about ourselves, we had a whole different set of demands. We started to demand way more from men. We have different expectations now. So it's a combination of the expectations have changed, they have increased, because now we want a man who's not just a provider, but we want him to be a friend. We want him to help in the household because wait a minute, we're also working. So dude, you got to help out, right? So men never asked for this. You know, you guys are like now, whoa, wait a minute. We never asked for you to go out and work all day and you come home and you're exhausted and I have to change the diapers, right?
True. Go ahead,
That's
Mike.
part, yeah, that's part of the complication nowadays, that we have lost our identity literally through all these rapid changes. You know, women have so much power nowadays with the introduction of the pill in the 60s. We also command when we want to get pregnant and if we want to get pregnant. You see, so all these subtle, seemingly subtle changes have changed, you know, the history of mankind forever. And once you realize that, and once you start to analyze why our behavior has so changed so much, and then the introduction of the dating apps, which made everything even more complicated. You see, I don't know if you want to talk about that. I would love to talk about the dating apps.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. I'm gonna let Mike ask your question real quick.
Yeah, no, but you're on point. Yeah, I'm listening to this, and it matches your material as well. So pretty much it blew up in men's face. You're telling me. It blew up. It kind of blew up, and now it makes it more rough, more of a challenge for us to, how can I put this, embrace the manhood with a woman. You know, is that correct?
Absolutely. So now what has happened is that women have tuned in so much into their masculine energy. This is a very popular term nowadays: masculine energy, feminine energy, whatever. Let me use it because it's easy for people to understand. So now we are so independent. We do everything alone. We don't need men anymore, right? But the problem is that we also show that in our attitude. So now we're like, dude, if you don't take me out for dinner, if you don't do this for me, if you don't do that for me, we see relationships as an exchange. So that's one problem. The other problem is that men are now also changing their expectations, because in the beginning, all that men could do was just sit back and see what was going to happen with us because we started to change. Now men have also changed. And they're also like, wait a minute, if you want to be so independent and have your own money and everything, then also pay half of the bills, you know, pay half of the rent. So now women, we are freaking out. We are literally freaking out. All my clients have the same issues. That's where I get my material from for my videos, a lot of it. Because all my clients are like, wait a minute, Esther, I don't like to be all these roles. I don't want to be so independent. I want a man to be a man. I want him to take me out. I want him to be in charge again. But men have tuned into the feminine energy now, you see, because we've taken up so much space. So there's a conflict there. So we women have to step back a little bit, you know, become more feminine. I literally teach my clients how to be tuned into their feminine energy, not be so defensive, not be so aggressive, not be so disappointed in men. Just let the man show you what he wants to show you, you see, and not command. And men have to step it up a little bit. So we have to find the balance back, you see. And it doesn't take so much as we think it takes. Everybody tells me, oh my God, that's so much work. That's not really true. It's literally a change in mindset, a change in attitude. And I'm here to teach that to people if they want to listen, obviously.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to walk the dog back a little bit because you touched on a lot really fast. And so in 1960s, right, about 64, 65, the pill was introduced to the American society, which changed the dynamic. However, I will touch on this. Because of the pill introduction in the mid-60s, it caused Gen Xers to be the smallest generation in history because the boomers were big, the millennials are big, and the Zs are big, but the Xers are the small generation who are caught into this paradox right now. So when you look at the 70s, you look at Western culture, Eastern Bloc Europe culture, Asia and Central Asia or Far East Asia culture. The one thing that didn't happen for their cultures that fast, but did in the West, was that we had the feminist movement in the 1970s. So in American culture, we actually started pushing the narrative for 30 years. That 30 years is now the offspring of these kids that are dealing with this dating conflict. And between the ages of, I'd say 25 to 55, they're struggling because of the paradox of so many choices. Because before we used to marry locally. So like, if you think about it, I'm 59, so I'm almost 60. So locally,
you look way younger. My gosh.
we would date the people that were in our geographical area. We wouldn't date someone in Seattle. We would date who was in our normal circle of friends. So if you gauge whoever the pretty girl was, she was the pretty girl. This girl was average, or whatever terms people want to use. Everybody was okay with dating within that spectrum. However, the paradox of choices has kicked in now. And so if you talk to your clients have more choices now than before. So an average woman that normally would have settled for the store owner or the store manager now goes, I'm going after the CEO that has a boat, a yacht in Yemen or the Emirates. So those things have come into play. And do you think that the paradox of choices of having so many options is impacting the way people date?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I totally agree that it is a problem, all these choices. They've done a lot of research now with products, for example, in supermarkets. One day they would put like 150 different kinds of marmalades like on sale, a new brand, whatever, and people would not be able to make a choice because it's like 150 different tastes. What am I going to do? The next day they put the same brand out there with 6 different tastes. Everybody was buying it. So when you are on a dating app, it's the same effect. There's so much choice. You think it's an illusion, basically, of so much choice, because what your brain starts to do is to not being able to choose, because you think like, oh, this is so great, those 10 things that this man, if you're a woman, right, shows you, but then the 11th thing, wait a minute, he's bold, I don't like that. So for little details, you start to swipe, which you used to not look at that, because you would meet that bold man in your area locally, like you say, and you would see the qualities that he had because you would meet him up close. The problem with dating apps is that because we have this illusion of choice, right? We don't make a choice. And the second thing is what's really missing from dating apps is that you don't feel any chemistry with this person. When you met that beautiful girl in your area, you knew that your choices were limited because you knew that you had to choose somebody in your area because it was very unlikely for you to travel around the world and find a bride and take her back home. So introduce her back to your family. This was rare. So you knew already, like, my choices are limited. She's the prettiest girl around. And maybe I don't like everything about her, but it's good enough. What we don't understand anymore,
Yes.
because our brain has tricked us into thinking that we can have everything we want, we can be everything we want, and we can have it now. We don't have any patience. You order something from Amazon, if it's not next day delivery, it upsets you. You want, on the dating app, you want the same. I want to find that guy today. I don't want to date 100 guys. Why are all these guys ugly? I hear this all the time from women. And I tell my clients, go into a seminar, right, with 100 people and tell me which guy you find from this crowd, which guy you find attractive. Maybe you will point out 1 or 2 guys, because that is the truth. In a crowd of people, not everybody is extremely good looking and making money and having a fantastic body and having the perfect job and lives in the perfect area. People are limited. Once you understand that you should focus only on what is really important in finding in this other person. We are so focused on money, on wealth, because this is another thing the internet has ruined in us. When you look at social media, everybody presents this picture perfect social life, right? I see girls unbox Hermes bags. These girls are 22, as if it's like a new loaf of bread, you know? So in your subconscious mind, you believe when you're young, like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. I should have this guy who gives me a Hermes bag for my birthday. I'm with the wrong man. Like, ask every woman who her ideal guy is, and then ask her, do you have this ideal guy next to you? No, because the ideal guy nowadays needs to be Mr. Perfect. Mr. Perfect doesn't exist, but you are also not perfect. So you have to understand that you're limited. You have to be more self-aware about what it is you really need, because what we actually need, and this we have become so bad at, we need to be able to connect to this other human. This is what you have to focus on. How do you connect? What are your values? What are your 3 non-negotiables? Those are important things, and not how much money this guy makes, how does he look, where does he live, what does he dress like.
And that's true. And you're right about that, Esther, but do they listen? No, because a lot of it's a high number of that. a woman worry about how much he makes. If you don't make 300, 100,000 plus, or if you don't drive this European drive, don't you worry about money? Are you single? Let's bring out, I'll just ask you a question. Are you single?
I don't worry about money in the sense that when you are in a relationship and you focus mostly on the money part, you will see that even if there is money, it won't bring you happiness if you are not already okay with yourself. The other thing is that what women don't understand, if you focus on, Esther, I just want a rich man. I just want to be okay. I don't want to have to worry about money. I just want him to take care of me. Great, no problem. But when you are with a rich man, that doesn't make you automatically rich. Correct. Because a man identifies with his wealth, right? A man is not going to suddenly give you $3 million because he likes you or loves you. He will be very careful, and a prenup will probably be arranged. So don't you, go off into la la land and believe that, once I have this rich guy, all my problems will be solved. It doesn't work like that. But you're right. Women don't listen much yet. I see that because I keep repeating myself all the time with women. But the following will happen. If we continue like this, in 10, 20 years, so many women will be single. I will have so much more work, which is good for me, right?
2030, they say.
Yes. And what will happen is that at some point, women will get so frustrated and they will understand that if you want to have a different outcome, you have to change your behavior. You cannot keep on having the same behavior and expecting to have a better outcome, right?
Correct.
No, absolutely.
And I'm not talking about lowering your standards and all that, because I already hear women commenting like, what are you talking about? I'm not lowering my standards.
Yeah.
But ask yourself, what are you offering to this man? Because you were in the intro, you were talking about like professional wives, isn't that what you were talking about? Professional housewives
and traditional wives, right?
Yes. So are you able to really accept this man for who he is? Or are you in this trying to change him so that he can accommodate your wishes? Those are two completely different things.
That's correct.
If as a woman, you can accept a man for what he's willing also to give you, right? And what he's able to give you. If you're able to accept him, I think that's the most important thing. You are, guys, you know this better than I do, for a man than anything, right?
Right. So I was going to ask you real quick on personal expectations. So we go with the 666, whatever, 6 feet, 6 figures, whatever, 6 in the pants, whatever. But
6 abs,
6 abs, 6 pack abs, bias, So I think the struggle that we have is that the checklist for women is so massive compared to the checklist for men, and then yet women don't present themselves, like weight. You can't talk about weight. You can't talk about sizes and different things that men find attractive. And so it's funny is I think we have a hypocrisy of ideologies between men and women. Men are looking for a partner that can probably have children with, or somebody that brings them peace. Women are looking for protection, security. And I'm going to touch on this because my grandfather said this many years ago, and I'll never forget it because it actually was really good. He said, when I was starting out my early dating years, he goes, when you're dating in your 20s, girls will date you because you're handsome, you're in shape, and they love you. He said, by the time you get to their 30s, they start looking for a little bit of more foundation, security. And by the time they're in the 40s and 50s, they only want security and protection. They could care less so much as about your looks as much as can you take care of the household? Can you get bills paid because they're on the back end? And it's so funny now that, I'm 59, I've kind of watched some of that play out. I've seen that adjustment of my friends that are female that I've known since I was in college or high school. I've seen how they migrated from their divorces to their next partner, and the next partner wasn't the 6-pack abs guy. He had a different, he brought a different thing to the table because the requirement changed as they got older. Now pause there.
Yeah. So what's your question? I agree with that.
So my question is, for personal choice, personal expectations, are the expectations evolving on a regular basis for women?
I think nowadays it's really very individual. You know, you see so many different kinds of couples. I see also many older women who hook up with younger men because
Yes.
they just want to have a good time. They have their financial independence, you know, during the 40s, let's say, and they don't want a man who's like nagging and difficult and demanding. And a younger man is fun, you know, and he adores you because he adores you for all your what you're about, you know, your
Right.
knowledge, your sensuality. When you're in your 40s, you know, you have more experience and all that. So you see all these kind of different relationships. But I do believe, if you want to keep it, let's say, very general, right? I do believe that a man's value always lies in his future. You see, a woman
Right.
always looks at what he can be, what he could be, his potential. And a
Right.
woman's value in general lies in her past. Like, men always look, where does she come from? How many men has she been with? Can she produce kids? If she
Right.
already has kids, who is that enemy of mine who produced those kids? Because men are very,
They're territorial.
yeah,
Men are
very
territorial.
territorial
Very
and
territorial.
very competitive, right? They always
Right.
see a previous partner as their competition. So in general, yes. When you have like a man who's in his 30s, let's say, he will in general look at a woman who's young because she can produce the family that he wants to have. She will follow him. He can mold her, let's say. A man who's in his 40s or 50s, I think, you will tell me what you think,
All right.
is looking more for peace, unless he is a weak man. If he's a weak man, meaning he has traumas that he has not healed yet, and
Right.
he's in his 50s, he will look for this young chick who's 20, 22, 23, the giggly one, the one who loves everything he does, follows him around like a puppy, because he believes that like that he feels like a hero, and like that he can mold her, he can do with her whatever he wants. A woman who is on his level, let's say, his emotional level, who is in his same age category,
Right.
will put him straight. You know, she will talk
Right.
back to him and he won't like that. So there are many different situations. It's very difficult to say exactly what the rules are nowadays, because you are so free. You know, I'm from the Netherlands. In the Netherlands nowadays, what I see, people are everything they want to be. You know, somebody starts out being married, and when they're in their 40s, they decide that actually they are gay, but they never realized it.
Right.
You can divorce, remarry, have multiple partners. It's also accepted by society. And this is also, in a way, confusing, because when you're allowed to be all these different roles in one lifetime, it's also confusing, you know, all these
Yeah.
options and choices.
No, you're right. And as you asked the question to me, I think what it was is that it comes down to confidence level. And you're right, men have to build their wealth. And I'm glad that I had some good uncles that told me that your value in my 20s was nothing. They used to call me Greenhorn or whatever. They had nicknames for me. They said, you're not where you need to be. But it was weird is by the time I was in my 30s, I was making really good money. By the time I was in my 40s, I was doing great. And what I realized is that the expectations of, if you have to find a partner or someone to be with that's going to help you keep excelling at what you do and support what you do, but it's twofold, right? Because I grew up with my mother working. My mom has a PhD. All my sisters have masters or PhDs. So I grew up in a house where the women were all professional women, and they were married, and but they are all professional women. So I had the adage that you could, just because you marry someone that's educated, you can be married to someone that's educated, that's thriving, and you just have to learn to have a partnership to build an empire. The problem we have nowadays is that some men feel intimidated, but a lot of that's because of their upbringing, trauma, as you use the term trauma, and they don't know how to navigate somebody on equal footing with them.
Yeah, but it's also that, again, I always say to women that you are in charge to show the man who you are. So if you're a woman who's extremely successful and you make lots of money, good for you. But if you rub it in his face, he will feel intimidated. Most men will. You have to understand that it's still like that men's egos are super sensitive. It's just
Right.
a man's nature. You can't just change that because you want to be so incredibly successful. Yeah, so I think that when you understand as a woman that it's smart to not see him as your competition, but to literally, respect him in that sense, and to always show him that although I don't need you, I really want to be with you. And I want you to be the leader of the household. Although maybe I make more money than you're not saying that, obviously. That's the reality of it. I think that that's the most important thing to be in a successful relationship.
So
go ahead, Mike.
I have a question. Does this fall? So now let's go geographically around. You're in Europe, we're in America, two different areas. Do you also run that message with us as well on this side? Or do you think it works all around the same board? Like your opinion on that? There's like, because Europe men are different than American men by a long shot.
Exactly. Europe also has a different history than the US, right? The US is a relatively new country. You have so many different kinds of people in the US who all came to your country for different reasons. In Europe, we have such an individualistic history. Like Germany has a completely different history than Greece. So you have all these little countries with a very long past, historically seen. So you also see that people are more conservative in Europe, in comparison than the US. You see that, except the Netherlands. I think the Netherlands is really an exception. We are a very small country, but it's insane what happens in the Netherlands, right?
Bro, you got I grew up in Germany, so I speak German. I grew up my whole life in Germany, and my oldest daughter lives in Passau. And so totally different going up to the Netherlands or Amsterdam or Holland.
Totally different.
Totally different culture compared to the German culture. Or I lived in France for a while in Montpellier. Totally different culture. And I think people are used the term conservative, but I think they're more down to earth. And as the great comment someone told me, just because you can do something don't mean you need to do something. I think in the Netherlands and sometimes up there in that area, people do things that you go, why do you do it? You don't need to do that. I just got to experiment. I got to do it. But they don't do that in some of the other areas, especially in Eastern Europe. People are very orthodox, very
you're right.
rigid. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're absolutely right. I mean, my mother is German, and she lives in the Netherlands, and I see the way she reacts to society. For her, it's like she can't grasp all these immense changes. She was telling me the other day, how is it possible that, okay, this is, a different topic now. Sorry, but side note. She was telling me the other day, how come that nowadays, all these criminals are in charge and good, normal people with values don't have any value anymore in society, it seems like the crazier you present yourself nowadays, the more people will listen to you. The more alternative you are, people will listen to you. If you're just a normal person, nobody cares. It seems a little bit like that's where we're heading. So in Greece, for example, you still see that there are very, very strict values, like family values, which I respect. I think that when there are specific family values and everybody knows, and traditions, I think that really keeps people grounded. I think the more free people are and the more choices we have, unfortunately, we as humans are not built to understand what to do with it. It's like I take you to your your small children, to a shop with sweets, and I just tell them you can have anything you want in this store. They will go crazy. If I tell them there's this $10 and that's it, they will be very careful about which sweet they will choose. And it's the same with grown-ups, because basically we are grown-ups, but we still have this inner child in us, right? I mean, we are raised, and then we're 18, and suddenly we have to make choices that nobody really prepares us for. Because in school, we learn about math and languages and everything, but we don't learn how to behave as a human being, how to be as a human being in a relationship with somebody else. Because our parents have all these traumas from previous generations, because traumas are being given from generation to generation.
Absolutely.
You don't know what to do with it,
Yeah, absolutely. And then it comes down to one generation breaking the cycle from the other generation on trauma. And then the thing is, I was going to touch on is the social media, and then I'll let Mike jump in here on social media. Was back in 1965, Paul Harvey, a commentator in America, said, if the media has the power to push a narrative or propaganda, doesn't matter what, it good, bad, or indifferent. And if they're able to do it for over a decade, then you get the result of that in the next generation, which is what when you touched on your mom in Germany, and it's the same thing, because I grew up totally in a German village my whole life pretty much. And so with the thing I see now is that the narratives that were pushed in Western culture are playing out now because of desensitization. Like, we used to didn't cuss on TV, we cuss now. We used to didn't listen to dirty hardcore rap music, they do now. We have kind of marginalized, or we become uncensored now to stuff that we used to consider that was taboo. So yeah, you got a criminal that's whatever, you're going to have that now because we have made it an acceptable behavior that didn't exist before. So it goes back to social media's impact. And it didn't have to be social media like you know it today. It could have been television commercials. It could have been radio. It could have been newspaper articles like GQ magazine. I grew up on GQ magazine in Europe, and I wanted to be a GQ model. I was always dressing nice when I was 18, between 16 to 20. I was always dressed nice. Everything was like, G to G. But that was because the propaganda was that's the way you had to look to be able to pull a girlfriend back then. And then I'll pause and let Mike go ahead and get in there, Mike.
Well, it hasn't changed since then either, because you have to make some money. You got to dress up nice. And a girl wants a guy, I don't care who they are, with a crappy car. You're not going to pick me up in a crappy car. Okay. Nobody's going to pick up Esther in a crappy car. Okay.
Well, if that would happen, I would give this person the benefit of the doubt.
The benefit of the doubt. Yeah, okay. But a lot of women don't.
Car, if you judge a guy on his car, that's a pretty lame, right? But I do believe that women in general look at a man's potential. Maybe a woman, because I see this with my clients also, maybe this guy doesn't have anything yet, but if you believe that he can have something tomorrow, you will stick to him. That's what women do. They always look ahead. They never look at the now. How is the evening? How do I feel with him? Do I feel comfortable? They look at what can you be tomorrow for me. But, that's too simplified. This is another issue. We grow up nowadays, and social media hasn't helped us much. This is a me area. It's all about me, you see? And we have lost actually touch with how important it is to think. I was raised still with have a good relationship with your neighbor. Nowadays you don't even know who your neighbor is. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to know your neighbor.
Don't talk to him.
Yeah. So I think if you focus on trying to be a better human being than you were yesterday, to do something for somebody else, I think that's already to do a good deed. Good thoughts make good words, make good deeds. I saw this Bohemian Rhapsody movie the other day about Queen, about Freddie Mercury, and his dad used to teach him that. And I relate so much to that. I think young people too much of the time, they think too much of themselves. And when you only think of me and what can you do for me, this can never create happy generations from now on. We have to shift the focus.
I'm going to touch you. All right. So you brought up Europe, and it's a cultural thing, because I had some of my cousins come over back in the 80s, and they came from California to visit me in Europe. And I took them to the discotheque back then, disco, or the clubs. And they saw and a lot of women in Europe don't wear makeup, not heavy on the makeup at all. They saw very naturally beautiful women, and they were like, why is that gorgeous, gorgeous girl with that ugly guy? And I said, let me tell you something. I said, in Europe, you're not based on your looks. People base you on whether you're compatible. They base whether you're a good person. I said, the problem is you're coming out of California and you're around everything superficial. Everything looks great on the surface, but it's dirty underneath. It's just that people are just not what they perceive to be. I said, in Europe, girls look for guys that are compatible with them, and it has nothing to do with looks as much as it has to do with character. I said the difference with Americans is Americans are superficial. So if you like on social media, you look at it, superficial. You look at guy, Mike brought it up, and I laugh about it because, I do drive a high-end sports car now. However, this is funny. When I was in Europe, I drove a $200 Audi 100. It was like 12 years old. Never had a problem getting a date. I then drove a Opel Ascona, which was beat up. Never had a problem getting a date. Dated probably just a gorgeous girl, and I had a raggedy car. It wasn't until I came to the States that I saw this idea that men are tied to their cars to try to date. And it was funny is I rode a skateboard in college when I got to Georgia Southern, and I had more dates than guys that had nice cars. And it was because I grew up in Europe looking for good content and character in the girls I was going out with, as opposed to looking at girls that were focused on, oh, he has a BMW, or he has an Audi, or he has that. So I think it's a cultural thing. But on social media, if you look at it from American culture, just on TikTok, because you're on TikTok too, just look at what the women are putting out on TikTok. And it's so superficial. And you don't know the character behind the person. And I pause there.
Yeah, you're right. It's extremely superficial. I would like it if it would be forbidden on social media to say that you're obsessed with a pullover or a bag or this word. I'm obsessed. I'm in love. I love it. I can't live without it. I hear this every day, and it's like it feeds into, the brain of young girls, and it gives a completely wrong idea of what your life should be about. And I just want to touch back on this, what you said, the difference between the US and Europe, because I also see that there's a difference within Europe. The Northern European countries are way more grounded. People are way more grounded. They are looking for a character, like you said. We are not so influenced by if you have a lot of money or not. We don't care so much. But in the South, for example, in Greece, where I live, a guy can have like a Porsche and live with his mom. Because here, the more south you go, it's very important, this more superficial lifestyle. How do I look? People present themselves. They're very busy with their external looks. So in Europe, you also see that. But I do believe what you say about the California. I do believe that depending on what kind of person you are and what you are looking for in your life, you have to also find the area that really fits you. Because if you live in California and you're looking for depth in relationships in general, it is pretty superficial. I've many clients in Los Angeles, for example, and I know how the vibe is there. And it's hard. The dating scene is very harsh there.
Horrible.
Yeah, horrible.
Horrible in New York too.
In New York, it's even like I hear clients of mine who tell me like, this guy, he had another date after me the same night because he just wanted to see, for 10 minutes if he liked me or not. It's like horrendous when you think of that. You feel like a piece of, I don't know. You don't feel human anymore.
No, it's sick. Hey, Mike, what questions you got? Because then I'm going to make sure that Esther goes back and pitches her book, gives us the name of her book and everything. We're going to go back and touch on that. So, Mike, what questions you got for her, man?
No, it's great information. It's not a question. I agree. I agree with a lot of it. But we have to look at, once again, USA compared to Europe. Europe is more elegant. I mean, I'm American, so it's elegant. It's elegant. I mean, even down to Spaniards to Europe, it's a whole different world. But what you say, Esther, is amazing. And it's a pleasure meeting you. This was nice.
Thank you so much. It was so great meeting you. You both have such good energy. Really, I love it.
Thank you.
And knowing that it's Sunday morning, I was looking at the hour that we were going to do this podcast, and I thought, wow, they get up early on Sunday. Good for them. You're good guys.
I get up at 3 and go. I had to go to the gym because I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition next year. So I'm up at 3.
I love that.
Yeah. So, go ahead and pitch your book real quick. What's the name of it? When do you think
I will send it to you. Okay. I will send you all the details. I will send you all the details.
Definitely, so we can put it out on the podcast. Hey, guys, subscribe to Embrace the Power. Follow Esther on Instagram. Mike had her Instagram popped up, so follow her on Instagram. Follow her on TikTok. And then if you have questions about dating or challenges with dating, reach out to her and ask her. And I mean, at the end of the day, man, it is one. Everybody's looking for happiness and trying to find love, and just don't look in the wrong places. So,
just start with building a relationship with yourself. That's the most important thing.
So, nice. Esther, if you could give any advice to anybody out there right now, young people out there, what last words would you give to them?
Literally what I just said, because I see this with everybody. Don't look for somebody to come and save you or to, add things to your life that you think you're missing. Start with finding your own path in life. to fulfill yourself from within. It's literally what my parents used to tell me, and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. It's so true. That's what it's all about. You have the longest relationship you'll ever have with yourself. So make it a good one. Because when you have a good relationship with yourself, it's inevitable that you will have, good relationships with others as well.
Woo! Yeah, bringing that, dropping that content and that knowledge. And with that being said, boom, from Fort Lauderdale, from Tampa, and from Athens, Greece. This is Ben Bugs, host of with his boy Mike G of Embrace the Power and Keep It
Rolling. Yes, yes.